It's taking a time, but as soon as it starts, I'll start. Recording start हो रही है. All right. Hello and welcome to our first episode of the leadership series that we have planned. And it's a pleasure to have Mr. Taher Khan with us today in our first session. Mr. Taher Khan needs no introduction for people who are in the Pakistani industry, but for the newcomers and a lot of other new audiences that we have today on the call who will be watching this show. So let me give a brief introduction of Mr. Taher Khan. Mr. Taher Khan launched Interflow Communications, and it was a very interesting launch that he, within 48 hours of quitting his position as the vice president in one of the local agencies, he just started his own venture, which today has become Interflow Communications Group. Interflow Communications Group, right? It was launched in 1983. Right now, it comprises of Interflow Communication, which is the advising agency, Outdoor Plus, which is the out-of-home business, Contact Plus, which is the event management company, Pyramid Production, which is a production house. Interestingly, in 1997, Mr. Taher Khan launched Mindshare in Pakistan, and presently he is also the shareholder in Group M and Ogilvy. Mr. Taher's diversity in business doesn't stop there, and Mr. Taher Khan also started his broadcast business, and he's the founder of two channels, which is TV One and News One, and one radio network, which is Radio One on the frequency FM 91. And last but not the least, Mr. Taher Khan has recently also ventured into the healthcare business and real estate. And his real estate business is Interflow Developers, and the healthcare business is Interflow Health Care, which is like amazing. So welcome on board, sir.
Thank you.
Very good to see you. And amazing profile, and that's you have always been an inspiration for everyone around. And thank you for taking time out for this call. And sir, as I mentioned earlier, that the reason that we are doing this leadership series is to highlight the leaders from the industry of Pakistan. We will have leaders from abroad as well. I'm talking to a lot of leaders who are there in the industry, but mainly highlighting people who have launched their ventures in Pakistan and have seen great success. And this will mainly, we will discuss about very general things today in terms of if somebody wants to be an entrepreneur, what are the challenges. And it's very interesting to hear about your journey, as you started in 1983 with just one company, which is Interflow, and today it's a whole empire of Interflow Group. So, sir, we will first of all start with the career point of view, sir. In advertising, was it a planned career, or was it something just came across and you just joined an advertising agency?
Totally by chance. I had no inkling or interest. I just, along with a friend of mine, I saw an ad in the Dawn which said wanted A levels or MBAs. And I was a bit taken aback because, A levels and MBAs is a huge gap. So we applied for the job, both my friend and I, and we obviously took it as a joke. And we were called for an interview, and we heard that there were 700 applicants, and quite a few. We went through the first screening, and then there was a second interview. And we were shocked that we were called for the second interview. And then there was a third interview. And at the third interview, we were told that we've been hired. And they hired a total of 4 people. So it was me, my friend, and there were 2 girls who were senior to us in the university. So had it not been for the fact that, you knew each other, and had it not been for the fact that we had a very, very interesting and a very, very good personality as a boss. It was then an agency called Ravi Delmon, and that's how. And we were told of the package, and the package was very nice. And certainly at age 19, you figure that you've got a job, and a well-paying job, and a job where there's a lot of glamour, there's a lot of partying those days, and so uh, at that age, I mean, you just thought you had struck gold.
Absolutely. So, sir, at the age of 19, too early, I mean, that's fascinating to hear because so you were actually practically an A levels, right, at that time when you joined.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Very young. Okay,
So
so
first few
did you
months.
study? Or, all right.
Huh?
So did you study or after that, or
I
you
then
just
went to
entered the
London.
field?
I went to London later to do my
All
courses
right.
in advertising. Yeah.
Okay.
But at that time, it was just something. We were in the university, and this happened, and you thought you'll just go there for a few months and get out. Like just see. But it is so addictive once you get in that I
Correct.
worked there and then moved on to M&J, which was a very very hot creative
Right.
shop, and then I realized that no, and then I left to for London to do courses in advertising at the College of Distributive Trades. But
Right.
but it was very very exciting to be so young, and by the time I was at M&J, I was I started my career with creative, and then I moved on to client service. So I was heading one of the biggest accounts of M&J at that time. So if you're
Right.
20 years and some months and you are the client service head of one of the biggest account in your agency, life is good. Like you feel good.
So, sir, that was the time that was like we are talking about 80s, right? And or
We're talking
maybe
about the
early 70s,
70s.
late 70s. So,
70s.
sir, looking at current situation for the youngsters today, so what's your advice? I mean, if a career break comes in so early in the age, should they opt for it, or since the market has changed and market has evolved, it's better to now complete your education first and get into the field?
I think I'd if I'm advising my children also, I'll say no, complete your education. I just got an, as I said, university, and I had wanted A levels or MBAs. So
Right.
I'd say, but on at the same token, I'd say one of the best places to start off, if you have done your MBA or any business, or advertising is still one of the best places to start, because like you get an exposure of a kind which helps you on in life later on in your career in marketing, and so on. So I think it's still a very very good place to start.
Right. So when you were there and you were working with M&J and then you decided to launch Interflow, was it something that was in your mind that one day I'm going to have my own agency, or again that was something that you thought is a gap and you can fill it in?
Yeah, actually, after M&J, then I went to London, came back. Then I worked with other agencies, and then in Paragon, I was vice president, and I was virtually running creative and client service at that agency. The one
Right.
thing which was there, always there in my mind, is that advertising professionals, minus a few, didn't get the kind of respect that maybe other professionals got, like lawyers or accountants, and it was more of something that you thought that the client has to be kept happy, and you've got to be at the receiving end all the time. And I thought that if one sets up a professional setup, and if one is good at what is doing, there's no reason why people should treat you the way some of our ad agencies were being treated. And Alhamdulillah, one did manage that. And I also thought that there was a lot of scope for combining creativity with some strategic thinking. So, like
Right.
there was a lot of agencies then which were doing very good creative work, but they lacked strategy. And there was a few, as I said, who were just out there to please the clients. And there were some who were, let's say, good on maybe strategy, but not good on creative. So I thought that
Right.
if one brought in the right combination, there was a lot of room.
Right. So coming to that, when you launched Interflow, were you afraid of taking that step when you launched that company because you were leaving a position of a vice president? It was must have been a really well-paid job back in the days. So were you really afraid of the fact that no, you're leaving that and starting something which obviously it's unforeseen, right?
And also because nobody, I'm a Pashtun from the tribal area, so nobody in my family was in business or anything close to business. Most of them were either landlords or in the army or you know maybe in
Right.
the government service. So I had no background, and I had spent time in Karachi, but I'd spent my first 15 years of life in Dhaka. So
Okay.
um, I had what you call those fair disadvantages. And then, of course, I didn't have much money. But somehow, I, by the grace of God, was confident that, inshallah. So when I started Interflow, there was a total of 16 people, which included the driver and the peon. And we started, and we had one client to start with, but then
Right.
as we moved along, Allah was kind. So I had set up the goal that we should be the biggest ad agency in 5 years. By the grace of God, we had achieved that in less than four.
Oh, wonderful. Wonderful. So, sir, did you have a plan B or no plan B? You just started and you
No
started,
plan.
but
No
good,
plan B.
no
Yeah,
plan B.
we said this is it. We'll make it. And my team was also convinced. It's the conviction of the team was to the level that when we went through the first month, I had to call everybody and said, "Look, guys, we have not discussed your packages, and
Okay.
none of them. With no one had we discussed, and we were just busy with work. And at the end of the month, I said, guys, like let's sit down and work out what you guys need to be paid.
Right. So,
So
sir,
it was. Hmm?
in general, sir, when if somebody is aspiring to start a venture, regardless of what the business is, so should there be a plan B, or one should have a strong faith and there will be failures, everything is going to be there, but one has to continue.
Actually, I think at that stage of life, I was 28 when I started it. Most people will obviously have a plan B, and it's good to have a plan B. Uh, in my case, quite honestly, I had no plan B, but I was very, very sure of what I was doing. Uh, and I had this faith in Allah, and I always do. I
Right.
said, here I am, I'll do it, and inshallah, will.
Sir, were there any times when you felt that it's over and your client is leaving or cash flow issues or up, you just felt that, it's not going the right way?
The biggest problem in any startup is cash flow, and especially in Pakistan, and especially those days it was worse. But yes, there were times that I felt that maybe uh, the state of despondency, and that was when your clients didn't pay you on time, and you had to pay the media on time, and so there are many sleepless nights. There are many times that I really didn't know how to make it. uh, but yes, that is a phase that you have to go through in practically every business.
Right. And when it comes to mistakes, sir, do you think, I mean, of course, everybody makes mistakes, but then how to react to those mistakes and how to stay calm in situation? And, in our business, it happens very frequently, right? With the clients, with the businesses. So how do you maintain that balance and stay calm, especially when you are the top leader and the team is panicked? It happens in big pitches and everything.
I think in the early stages, it was different. Later on in life, it was different. But there's always, for instance, we had the Pepsi account for years,
Right.
I think 25 odd years. Um, Losing that business really hurt because I was personally very involved with it. But then
Right.
you figure out that that's life. In life, you've got to be ready. But in the early phases, talking about the early phases, there were times when there were disappointments. But the high was that the first 4 years, as I said, we were picking, and like within our first few months, we got our first multinational account, and then we started getting the bigger accounts, and in our in our third of year, we got the Pepsi account, and so there were a lot of highs. And by about the fourth or fifth year, um, we had uh, yeah, in the fourth year, we had an affiliation with Ogilvy, which itself was, a very big thing, because every
Right.
big agency in this country was running after Ogilvy, and we managed it. And again, there also, that was a stroke of luck. It was by chance. There was no plan, but it happened.
Nice. So any memories you have? Like, obviously, I had the pleasure of working with you, and I had the honor of working with you on Pepsi. And back in the days, that Khalid Alvi and all those guys were there. Any memories that you could still recall and you still laugh about it? That something that was going wrong, it all worked well at the end of the day.
There's one I could. Uh, when the Pepsi client came to visit us, I was sitting in an office with a client in sight. I had totally forgotten about the fact that the Pepsi team was visiting. And they had a Greek gentleman who was the head of the team then, Dennis Malamatinas, who later on went and became the chairman and CEO of Burger King worldwide.
All right.
So he had come along with two other people from abroad, with the local marketing manager, and they came to the office to find out that my secretary told them that the boss is not here. And they were shocked. They were really shocked. And then my secretary called me, and I spoke to my friend who was a marketing manager, and he said, Taher Khan, where are you? I said, shit, I forgot. And, so I thought about it. I said, this is a situation. What do I do? So I called my friend Nazam Khan, and I said, look, is there any way I can talk to Dennis Malamatinas? He said, obviously no way. I said, can I at least see him? And he said, well, he's at the Sheraton. He's got a flight tonight, and at this time, he should be packing. So if you want to call, he's at Sheraton. So I called Sheraton, and Dennis picked up the phone, and I said, I'm so and so. He says, you were not there for PepsiCo. And I said, look, if you've got a few minutes, I just want to come and see you. And he said, no, I'm packing, I'm leaving. I said, please, I just want to. So when I went there to the hotel, he said, come up to my room. And I went there, and he was packing, and he said, yes, what do you want to say? I said, look, I normally I tell my secretary if I have any meeting. This time I forgot. I'm here to apologize for the fact that I was not there. In my country, we are very hospitable people, and we never do that. So I'm very sorry. So he said, but I've not come for a social meeting. It was a professional business meeting. I said, no, for me it was social. And he said, what do you mean? I said, even if you had given your business to me, I wouldn't have taken it. And he looked at me, and he stopped his packing, and he said, why are you saying that? I said, because your country manager takes kickbacks from the advertising agencies. We don't believe in it. So I would not have liked to work on your business. And that is when he just told me, he said, till then I was standing, and he said, please sit down. He said, please go ahead. And then he told me, he said, what? Let me tell you what. One of the decisions I've taken on this visit is to fire him. So the next time I'm here, we'll have a new country head. And he said, and by the way, because I'm coming next week, can you make a presentation and be there in your office next week? And next week we did make a presentation, and we won Pepsi. So,
Right.
it couldn't be worse than how it started, and it couldn't be better than how it ended. So
Correct.
it happens.
Absolutely. So, you handled it very nicely. I mean, it's interesting. I mean, that's the biggest art of, I think, client servicing and the client leadership, how you handle such situations, because everybody's in a situation sometimes.
Yeah.
So that's glad to hear, sir. That's a very interesting story. Coming to the family, sir. Of course, when you launched Interflow, so were you married?
Yeah.
Sorry, a personal question. And did you have kids?
Uh, yeah. When I met my wife at M&J. She was a visualizer. I was in client service. She is basically had done her art. She was in a creative. We met there, and the reason that I came back from London was that in London she was also there at that time, and we decided to get married. So
Okay.
both of us had shared the passion for advertising. So when I started the company, obviously she was my partner in that, and we, let's say, co-founded the company. At
Right.
that time, I was married for about 4 years, less than four, and
Right.
my eldest child, Sarah, was 4 years, and yeah, I was married 5 years, so my eldest was four, and just then my second daughter was born. So she was just born. We launched in July '83, and she was born in August '83. So I had
Oh,
one child
okay.
and one on the way.
All right. So must be tough. And that brings to the same questions. Work-life balance. Does it exist? Or that depends on your aspiration of success and it doesn't exist? What's your point of view on that, sir? Because you have gone through that phase.
At that time, very honestly, my work-life balance was not ideal. I worked extra long hours. I enjoyed it. Not that I never enjoyed it. I enjoyed it, and mind you, I was also a young father in the sense that at 28, I was a father of two children. So, but I think that I was so engrossed in my work. But what luckily for me, my wife was with me, so
Right.
we'd spent a lot of time working together.
Correct.
Um, so that way it was I was in a better position to handle, because she knew why I needed to work the way I was working, and so she made sure that children got the time from her, quality, and I got to spend quality time with them, not enough time. But
Right.
in hindsight, I should have worked a bit better on my
Right.
work life balance. Yeah.
So, sir, if I say when you are heading towards success, there are always sacrifices. Is family the one, especially in the corporate world or entrepreneurship?
What, I beg your pardon?
Or so when you are succeeding and you are obviously the business is growing in everything, so there are always sacrifices and opportunity costs, right? So is family one of them or shouldn't be?
Actually, there is a price you pay for anything in life. There is a price. Um, as you go through life, you start rationalizing and reflecting more. But I think when you're climbing the ladder of success, you're going up. Uh, it is. I mean, today, let's say my regret would be I always used to think that I'll have more time to spend with my mother. Uh, and
Right.
when she passed away, and she passed away quite young, I was devastated, because like, I always thought that I, I'll spend that time with her, and let me just do a few things, and then I'll have a lot of time. Then I'll have a
Right.
lot of time. But that's how life is. I didn't get the time that I really wanted. Um,
Right.
so in that was, let's say, a price I paid. Um,
Right.
the price you also pay is maybe some of the things that you really want to do, you don't find time to do it. For instance, for me, reading is a passion. I find time to read. Even then, I used to find time, but not the kind of time that I, let's say, find today. But I love reading, and if I don't read a new book every few days, like, I get very restless. So
Right.
these are the little prices you paid, and also, obviously, one of the price you pay being in business is, especially in our business in our country, finances. They, at some
Yeah.
stage or the other, do bother you a lot.
True. That's correct, sir. So On the team and leadership, sir, few questions. What are the key qualities of a team that, I mean, obviously you have a team of 17, 18 people who started with you. In general, what should be, if I ask you to shortlist two or three key qualities that a team should have for any venture to start, what would that be?
The team should first of all have the belief that whatever you're doing, it will succeed and it's the right thing you're doing. So they should have that belief, they should have that self confidence, they should have they also they believe in their leader. If they don't look up to their leader, chances of success are not that high. I mean, and by looking up to their leader does not mean that the leader should have an imposing leadership quality. The leader should be able to inspire. The leader should be able to lead by example. And if people in the team see the leader as somebody who is coming across to them as someone who's committed to the cause, who's honest to the cause, who's sincere to them, and who's sincere to the cause, the team gets motivated, and the team then reaches out for the stars. Um, I was lucky to have people like that, um, and I don't think that you need all cheetahs in a team. You know, like a team can
Yeah,
be a well balanced team. Some people have different strengths, but I think if the team together, when they're together, it's like a cricket team. I mean, you know, you need your bowlers, you need your
yeah,
batsmen, you need. So I think that the team needs to have faith in the leadership.
right,
That's important, and they should know what is expected of them. So each one then delivers as to what is expected in the best possible
yeah,
manner.
right. And very old question that many people ask, what exactly is leadership?
I think leadership is the ability to inspire people to take out their best uh, in whichever area they are in. So the job of a leader is basically to inspire. Um, and on another plane, you know, when Jack Welch, as the leader of GE,
Yeah,
um, after spending some time, he realized, he said that if his job as the chairman of GE was to select the right people for the key jobs. So
yeah,
actually, he's an HR, head of HR. And I
yeah,
think that in any organization, the task of a leader is to be able to identify the right people for the key jobs, and
right,
then to make sure that they have the inspiration and the motivation and incentive to take out their best. So if I walk into a company, like Jack Welch figured, G is a huge company, so he
yeah,
figured that these are the number of people who should be absolutely right. And then he looked at them, and wherever he felt that the people are not right, he just made sure that either they were brought up to that level, changed, brought in. But once you have the right people in the right job, the task of the leader is then to simply inspire them and to make them go for the best.
right. So the next section is, it's something which is very, this is going to, it's a very generally discussed topics amongst the youngsters. Passion, does it exist? Or this word exists in the corporate world or entrepreneurship?
Passion exists everywhere. I mean, if you have a if you're a musician, you can only become a great musician if you've got passion for music. So whatever field you are, whether it's music or whether it's sports or whether it's uh, passion is needed. And then let's say the passion for the field, and then there's also the passion to succeed. There's some very passionate, talented people, but they do not have the passion to succeed. I mean, they don't. Their thing is that they're happy doing what they're doing at the level they're doing. So the passion is still there, but the passion to excel is not there. Some people are very passionate about cricket without ever playing cricket, and
Exactly.
then they're cricketers who are. So, what I'm saying is the passion to excel is actually the main thing.
So is passion and ego the same thing? So what's in your view?
Passion and
Ego.
ego.
Yes, sir.
I think ego is, to my mind, a negative thing, while passion is a very positive thing. Uh,
Right.
I think ego is something which is, nobody, none of us, ego is only there for our creator. For us, ego doesn't exist or shouldn't exist. Unfortunately, it exists, and unfortunately, that's the point where a lot of successful people make this big mistake, where they think and where they attribute that success to their own selves and their own and develop an ego. I personally think that the higher you go in life, the more humble you should be, and grateful to the Creator for giving you that. And so, with each step that you climb, I think you
Yeah.
should be more and more humble.
Right. But from an entrepreneurship perspective, if you're constantly failing in a venture, which you are very passionate about, but you keep on raising the stakes, so, so should we classify it as passion, or is it some people have it in them that we can't fail, we can't afford to, and make it an ego issue that we have to make it work regardless of what? So then, isn't it so that that fine line diminishes somewhere?
There are times when you should be able to realize that something will not work, uh, given the circumstances and given the mix. It's like a famous quote for Einstein also, that if you put the same chemicals and expect a different reaction every time by just putting them together, then you're being foolish. So unless you change the elements, try it again. Unless you change or see there is change, and in life, I think you should be able to also accept failures. I mean, I've done a few businesses where I failed, and I realized that I was not the right person to do that, get into that business,
Right.
and then take it, because like, you don't have to be successful in everything you do, and by the same token, you may not be successful at the first time. But if you just want continue with it with ego in place, that I can't go wrong, then you're wrong. You have to
Right.
figure that, so failure is part of life, as is
Right.
success.
Right. And there's one very interesting statement that we keep on reading in books and here: do what you love or love what you do. Which one applies more and is more pragmatic, I would say?
Actually, to my mind, one of the definitions I have of success is to be able to do what you want. So, the ability to do what you want, or the freedom to do what you want, is, I think, the nirvana of life. Uh, Putting it in another way, I believe that one prayer that I always have is that, or my definition of success is that when you depend on nobody else but Allah, then you're the most successful person on earth. And how? Because you could have position, you could have power, you could have money, but if you don't have health, all that is useless. If you have health, but you do not have, let's say, peace at home, peace with your family, it's useless. If you have got all the wealth in the world but no respect in society, I think it's useless. So, if you want to really sum it down, if you are dependent on nobody but Allah, to my
Right.
mind, there's no bigger success, because if you are not dependent, that means you're not dependent on on human beings. You're not dependent, and that gives you the freedom to do
Right.
what you have a passion for. Um, to my mind, that is the height of your achievement.
That's a fantastic advice, sir. And here another point comes to my mind that a lot of times when people are thinking of starting their own ventures, that's the first thought that comes to your mind. That do we have enough contacts with the people? Like in our business, I'll give you example and give the context in our media or advertising business. If somebody decides to start their own thing, the first question that comes to everybody's mind is that, oh, if we leave the position, are we going to be successful? Because in our industry, a lot of things are linked to the position that you hold or where you are sitting at, right? So that's why a lot of people have fears that if we obviously quit our job and go solo, will we get the same kind of support? We'll probably have a lot of lesser people start calling us. There will be no calls. It's going to be a very lonely life. So is that? I mean, it is a reality. So how do you think that it can be coped up? While the faith, strong faith, is definitely has to be there. But then, what's the advice for people who are thinking of someday doing something, but that fear is there?
That fear will always be there. And that's why you've got more managers than entrepreneurs, because a manager leads a fairly safe life. I mean, you're going to work, end of the month, you're going to get paid, end of the year, you get an increment. And if you are doing well and the company is doing well, you get a bonus. So it's a very predictable life.
Yeah,
An entrepreneur's life is obviously turbulent. You may make it, you may not make it. But having said that, it was easier in my days. It was easier because it was not as structured. Today, if someone, let's say, wants to venture and start a ad agency of his own, uh, it is a more difficult situation because the agencies which are big, the multinationals have alignments. This atmosphere is not as conducive as it was
correct.
back 40 years ago. Uh, so one has to be very clear in one's mind. One has to figure out, obviously, do the SWOT analysis and see what are the strengths, the weaknesses, the opportunities, the threats, and go through it. And if you cannot add value to whatever you're doing, or add value to the client in whatever you are presenting, then I think venturing would be not very advisable. But if you have a very clear idea of how you will bring value to your customer in a unique way, in a way that is better than what your competitors are providing, you
Yeah,
should by all means buy my all. And also, I think it is good to look for a niche or an area which is not serviced, or where there is a demand but there's not no supply.
right,
That in today's age, of which is a very highly competitive age, today one has
right,
to be very clear about that. What are you bringing to the table?
right, right. No, thank you. That's another very wonderful piece of advice, sir. So now we will move on to some pointy questions and interesting ones also. So the question number one is politics in the corporate world. Three choices, I would say. A, absolutely necessary. B, good to be aware of. And C, play it hard. What applies more, sir?
Let me get the question. In
Politics in the corporate world.
Yeah,
Option A, absolutely necessary. Option B, good to be aware of. And C, play it hard.
I think politics, in any in politics, you're born with, every human being. When a child is born, after a few months only, the child also realizes uh, how to appeal or how to get things out of both parents. And the child is smart enough to realize how to treat the two parents, and the child doesn't, he or she doesn't treat them the same way.
Right.
So, and then when they're siblings, even with siblings, you have a certain politics. I mean, whether it's, I'm not saying it's a negative politics, but it's politics. Uh, Human beings have a tendency to figure out how to react with another human being, which is very different from the way they'll react with maybe another one. So I think politics is not necessarily bad. Politics and depends on again what you call politics. One is a destructive politics. One is a politics where you try to put people down, or you try to get unfair advantage. That politics, to my mind, is not acceptable, and it is not. It doesn't work in the long term. Long term,
Right.
people people do realize at the end of the day that you are doing politics.
Right.
But politics is necessary. It is something that you can't do without. And
Right.
whenever there are more than two people, there's politics. So if anyone says that there's no politics, politics is always there. The only thing is if you are, if, for instance, if you know that somebody has worked very hard, or somebody's, or your wife has really worked hard on her hair, and she comes and she says, "How am I looking?" I mean, it is more advisable to say you're looking very nice. And even if you have a comment and say, well, but it would help if you also did this or whatever. But if you say, oh shit, man, you shouldn't do that. So that's tact. That's that's decency. That's tact. It's not politics. Uh, yes, the corporate world, there's a lot of companies, a lot of people who have that dog eat dog thing. I personally think that most of those people fall somewhere in life. They can succeed in the short term, but if you look at all the big leaders, and most of them are people who have been honest, who have been sincere, and who have been aware of politics around them. They've not indulged in it, but they've been aware of it and they've handled it.
Right.
So I think that A, politics exists everywhere. B, all politics is not necessarily wrong. C, but what succeeds in the end is sincerity, honesty, frankness, long term. That's how you win.
Right, sir. Second question. Friendship versus business growth. So when you sometimes start your own venture, there are co-founders, or it could be your friends also. And there comes a time, if there are troubled times or difficult times that they're going through, which comes first, your friendship, or even in the long run when the business grows and you are like highly successful and you have got old friends as partners, and sometimes there are difficult decisions to be made. So as a priority, as a human, what comes first? Is it the business growth that should be prioritized because it's a professional environment, or the friendship still carries a lot of weight?
Human relationships are very, very important. So if you have a friend, obviously you value that friendship. If you've got siblings, or if you've got your wife, so relationships are fundamental. However, one has to keep business and relationships separate. I mean, let me try and if there's a friend of mine who is in a business with me and I see that we don't see eye to eye, I'd much rather sit down with him and say, look, we cannot operate to, or we cannot make this business to its optimum because we differ. So why don't we part? And then I be fair and say, okay, let's do it. Let's split the company in a
Right.
manner that you are not wronged. Uh, and when you're fair, you can maintain your relationship and you can still part ways. I think that that is a far better thing than to suffer a business loss. And because eventually your relationship will get sour if the business keeps going down and you're still maintaining it just because of friendship. So it's much better, I think, to separate your ways, and to be there for your friend when he needs help or advice or whatever. That's far better than to have him in the business and let the
Right.
business keep going down. So, so that And the second thing is, again, fairness. And I'll give you one example which sticks out as a business partner I had. And then the company, we decided to close that company. Um, and the only thing we had was some content.
Right.
So he said, "Sir, we have this content, and I'll make a list of what you should get and I should get." And we have 50-50 partners. So I said, "Look, the only which way in which we can do it fairly is I'll give you the choice to you. You make two lists. I will pick one and you keep the other one. Or you give me the choice. I'll make two lists. Then you get to pick what you want and I'll keep the rest."
Right.
And he thought and he said, "Well," I said, "up to you. If you want to make it, you make it."
Right.
And he did. So I said, I laughingly asked him, I said, "The first list that you had made and the second, did you find a difference?" And he also laughed and he said, "Yeah." Because the first one, I was being selfish. And now when I made it, I realized that you wanted a completely fair this thing. So I kept that fairness in my mind that if I get any of these, it will be as good. So our
Right.
relationship was intact. The thing was fair. So I'm saying it has to be applied anywhere. That whenever you're honest and you're fair, your relationships are not are not affected.
Got it, sir. Question number three, sir. Rivalries in business and competition. We should, what's the right approach? To learn from them and implement the changes that they're doing right? Or is it the kind of everything is fair in love and war and then you compete? Which one is a better way of creating a balance in the industry as well as the organization?
Actually, you see, there are two hats that you have to wear. One is the industry. For instance, when I sit at the Pakistan Broadcasters Association board, then I wear the hat of the industry. Then whatever
Right.
steps I have to consider are in the interest of the industry, which may at times not be in the interest of my channel. But there I have to wear that hat. When I so by and large in any industry, you are competing with each other, yes.
Yeah.
You are gladiators in the arena, but you're not gladiators outside. It's like the the great boxer Muhammad Ali. He went after a press conference where Joe Frazier was abusing him and he was abusing him. And after that, he went to Joe Frazier and Joe Frazier won't talk to him. And Ali says that I jumped in his car and I said, "Look, Joe, we are gladiators in the arena, but outside the arena, we
Right.
are human beings and we can be friends and we can." So, a lot of competitors in my industry are very good friends, and we sit in the evening and we laugh together. We can compete for business. That does not
Right.
mean so. I think that all is fair in love and war is an old philosophy. I think that that should be thrown out, and you say,
Right.
okay, we compete, but then that's for that part of our lives. Outside
Right.
of that, yeah.
All right, sir. So leaders eat last. Is it true or false, sir?
Hmm?
Leaders eat last. That's a very famous book of Simon Sinek, and that's a statement.
Leaders,
But
what? Sorry, leaders
leaders eat last.
eat last.
Yes. So that's a Simon Sinek's book in which he had highlighted that leaders should be the one who eats the last and stuff. And he gave a lot of examples of US Marines. But in corporate life, does that exist or how does this philosophy applies?
Actually, the principle applies everywhere. Uh,
Right.
and what you actually mean by the fact that when you have provided for everybody, nobody grudges what you get. Uh, so if there's a corporate leader and and he's picking up $100 million bonus, no one minds it if others have also been given their worth. So when you eat last, it means A, you've taken care of everyone else, and then nobody grudges what you get because they have been given what they deserve, and
Right.
you are taking what you deserve. But when you do it at the price of others, then there's resentment. If I have not taken care of people, my team, and if I've just provided for myself, there'll be resentment. And resentment then will cause demotivation, and demotivation means next time I'll have nothing to eat anyway. So with a yeah. So I think that that's how I take it. I take it if you have provided for everyone as per their fair share, then whatever you take, nobody grudges you.
Right, sir. Thank you. And last few questions, sir. So have you? I mean, how many leaders Mr. Tahir Khan has produced? I mean, can you recall people who you could be proud of telling other people that these used to work for the group and now they have reached great heights?
Oh, okay. In in our field, I mean, Rehan Merchant uh,
Right,
has done phenomenally well. Then we have people who've created their own ad agencies, like Gulrez had created Attitude. We had Shaji Kazmi who created his agency.
right,
We have Shoaib Qureshi, who's Bullseye, and uh, and then we've got people. We have Saqib, who's now heading an energy drink worldwide as a CEO. We've got Saqib, who's sitting in Canada with Procter and Gamble there, or in
right,
Switzerland somewhere. We've got people who are heading. We've got people who did excelled in banks, like Umar Fareed, who was a senior executive vice president in banks. We have people who have excelled. Hasib, who's in with Angro, heading marketing, ex
right.
Interflow. We've got Saqib Shirani, who's the leadest economic analyst in this country. He's ex Interflow. Zahid Ibrahim, who's now a big lawyer. He's again ex Interflow. So the list goes
This
on
goes
and
on.
on. Yeah.
Oh, you should be
And
proud
I'm
of it. So
very
that
proud. Huh?
yeah, absolutely, because it's a proud moment. So you should be proud that so many people are in the leadership positions who have somehow or the other been associated with Interflow. And
And the list goes on.
yeah,
I mean, I must have forgotten a lot of people, but like
right.
uh, there's a lot of them who, mashallah, done very well, and I feel really proud.
Right. And the last two questions, sir. Have you ever thought of retiring and nominating a group CEO someday in your life? Or would you like to be in the work as long as you could possibly be?
Actually, I am already quite semi-retired in that sense. Um
Right.
as I said earlier, that the height of your achievement is when you have your own time to yourself and you're not dependent on anyone. Now, I frankly have no compulsion to come to work. I
Right.
come to work because I get bored at home. So after a while, I say, okay, so I just come to the office for a few hours.
Right.
Frankly, I don't need. And number two, I have always limited the number of direct reports. I have very few people who report directly to me. Uh,
Right.
and that is a lesson I have learned early on in life, that I don't need to go, like, so if it's a company, most probably it will be the CEO that I'm in touch with, uh, and maybe one or two key people. More than that, I would not like, because if I don't trust the CEO and if I don't have faith in him or her, I shouldn't have placed him there. So
Correct.
that's the other good thing. That gives me a lot of time. And number two, I manage a lot of time for myself because I don't have long meetings. My meetings last 5 minutes to 10 minutes, and then it's over.
Right.
Either I tell my managers, you come to me with a problem,
Right.
and right, or if you have found a solution for a problem, come to me. But then you don't have to sit there for 1 hour. I don't believe in long meetings. I've come to the point, get the problem fixed, and let's get going.
Right.
Yes. Then, if you want to have a chat with me, come to my house in the evening, sit with me, have a chat. But no
Right.
chats. Yeah. So that makes life simple.
Right, sir. And the last question, sir. Will the Pakistan industry ever have another Tahir Khan?
Oh, they'll have many more. Um, I think that each, like if you look at, let me talk to you from purely advertising point of view. In Pakistan advertising also there have been stalwarts who have come. There are people who have been giants in their times, and there were Javed Jabbar and M&J, which was glowing at one time, and really there were those heydays of Lintus, when Lintus used to be there.
Right.
So every age produces new kind of leadership. New people will come. So any industry and every industry will have people who will come, they'll shine for a while, and fade, and somebody else will come. So that's a process, that's history for you.
Right.
So inshallah the industry will produce many more Tahir Khans, um, and
Inshallah.
I can already see a few in the making, and inshallah they will come, and they will do better,
Right.
and better things in life.
So, sir, should I come back to Pakistan in your guidance?
Huh?
Should I come back to Pakistan in your guidance?
Absolutely. Pakistan always needs bright people, and people who have faith in themselves and in Pakistan. I mean, inshallah.
Correct. Thank you very much, sir. And that comes to the end of our conversation today. I cannot thank you enough for taking time out today for this call. And it was
Thank you.
real pleasure talking to you after a very long time, sir.
Thank you. It was equally a pleasure for me. And
Thank
have a
you.
great day.
You
Okay.
too, sir.
Thank you.
Enjoy your day. Thank you. Allah
Thank
Hafiz.
you. Okay. Allah Hafiz. Ek minute.